Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is science of fake lie imagination, study of fake lie imagination. Anything which is said against the native cultures across the world without any proof is a mythology. And the biggest attack of mythology is against the Vedic wisdom and Shastras from originally written from India, but belong to the whole world. So I have a very, very special guest, a great friend, and a Rishi, Muni, Tapasi, and you can call him a great researcher on these areas. Without delay, let us welcome Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Namaskar. Nilesh, before we start off,
we
are talking about Dhyan, and the Sanskrit root words are there about Dhyana. And meditation looks so like a small word as compared to Dhyana. And Dhyan, and also the concept of meditation, of meditating on a light bulb and like making your eyes go crazy. And also the concept of meditation in the Western world, like meditating on objects and improving concentration and all these things. How, like, I find it very artificial, but what is your viewpoint?
No, great question. Now, you talked about how Dhyana, or, you may use the word and you may translate it in a simple fashion. For representation, we have to make it simple. So, as a Murti Puja, that's something we discussed in the past. So it is this whole consciousness, Parabrahma, that is filled everywhere with no space left untouched. It doesn't exist. I mean, there is nothing that doesn't exist outside it. But that same Parabrahma, and Maharashtrian saints have described it many times, so that Parabrahma that people cannot even fathom, but he becomes our servant, like in a bhakti mood, likes of Namdeva and Tukaram have said that, which is to say, you will now have a murti, and it's right there. It's just so small and simple. So as a representation, we make it simple. So in that sense, if you try to translate dhyana as a meditation, as a concentration on a specific subject, as focusing on something, I think that's a very reasonable translation. However, there are always the deeper layers of it. And how do we understand those deeper layers? Actually, in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is another sutra that I don't have it by heart. But what it says is that the words get attached different meanings by their usage. Similarly, what has happened to dhyana is that if dhyana was in one particular place, geographical place I'm talking, or one particular place as a geographical and a time, it may have a limited meaning. But as that same thing travels, so for example, if you take in the eastern direction, from India going to, say, China and Korea and Japan, dhyana has become Chayan, and then eventually has become Zen, all the way to Japan. It's nothing but dhyana. Okay, even the word that you will hear, you have people with a name such as Yamoda Roshi, the Roshi from Rushi almost. And now if you go in the westward direction from India, and let's come to America where we are discussing this. Now, some of the things have simply Yoga Nidra was become translated as mindful meditation or something, or heartful meditations. And you will see these words. Sometimes these translations are done to make the meaning easier to the receiving audience in any given place, and also time. Time also matters, like how it is translated today. The yoga is translated today in America, mindful meditation. If that was done, say, 300 years ago, it might have been translated very differently, because the timing also matters, not just the place. Okay, because the maturity comes with it. So yes, there are various translations. I would say, just to summarize that, Aditya, the proof is in the pudding of taste of the pudding. So, for example, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and we will talk about that today. But in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he explains dhyana in a very brief way, in a summary form, like an equation, mathematical equation. But then he also tells us that if you do this, what are some of the outcomes? Which is that taste of the pudding. So basically, that should help us understand: are we understanding dhyana in the right fashion?
A great point. And I know you have to go for another show. You can check out your presentation right now.
Yeah. And I still have like 45 minutes from now, or even.
So next question, this is a discussion point. Like you correctly said, that the meditation in the Western world as a concept, as a culture, doesn't exist because it's a belief-based culture. Like what you see, Pratyaksha Praman is what the main thing is. Dhyana is based on Shavda Pramaar because you need to have the concept of guided meditation. Like Dhyana is always directed. Like you cannot do yoga without an object, because otherwise, whom are you trying to be one with? So the yogi focuses on Paramatma, Bhakta focuses on Bhagavan, and all are doing the same thing. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam vijnanodayam brahmiti paramatmati Bhagavan. And a person who is a sincere person, who may not have the vision of Paramatma, or he has initially no faith on Shabda, Praman of the Veda, and that person may focus on the almighty aspect, which is Brahman, all-pervading aspect. All three are valid spiritualists, according to Shastra. But still, you need an object where you can focus on, or a Kendra Bindu, like the focus point. And it cannot be void, it cannot be emptiness, it cannot be just yourself. Like people say, look into yourself. It's a very difficult thing to do, look into yourself. Like if somebody tells me, Aditya ji, please glorify yourself, I'll be lost of words, to even speak one word about myself. So what do you have to say on that? Like it's a very misguided meditation, according to me, in the Western world.
Well, okay, I would not divide this as a Eastern versus Western, and this is for a good reason. Because again, we are talking about the space and a time. Okay, so space as a geographical space, think of West versus East, West or East. And I don't think it's as simple as in the East, everyone knows how to do yoga properly, dhyana properly. And in the West, everyone doesn't know. It's not that simple and black and white. What I see actually right now, this weekend, we are going through a conference on a dhyana. Okay. And so that's why I thought I'll talk about this also, this same subject. And what I find is, amazing presentations, amazing out of this world presentations. And by the way, those people who are listening to it right away, they can possibly do it. They go Google and do a conference on a Dhyana Indic Academy. They will able to see the link and they can join. It's a whole one day left still, a lot of presentations. And I'll be presenting like 12 hours from now. But so there also what I'm saying is great presentations, Aditya ji, but also there are some presentations where a lot of esoteric stuff is being said, almost in a woke fashion. Okay, I at least cannot make sense out of it. In fact, I took one comment and just sent to one of my friends. I said, tell me if you understand what you are reading. So therefore, I would not distinguish as like a black and white in the sense of East versus West or anything like this. You find people with a very good comprehension, very good understanding in the West. You and me are sitting in the West. Physically, we are sitting in the West, right? And on the other hand, in the East, you will find a lot of esotericism sometimes added. This could be for various reasons, maybe the lack of understanding, marketing, or it's evolution. Because remember, Dhyana is a Sadhan and also it's a Sadhya. Right. So Sadhya means now you reach the stage of a excellence or perfection. But Sadhan means you are still struggling with it. And in some sense, all of us are, right? We may be good, but we want somebody else to recognize it. As you said before, if somebody asks you to, Aditya ji, say something in your own praise, you will find it very difficult, right? And that's the right thing, because we should be always self-critical in a way, right? I mean, that humbleness comes from that samshaya. Do I really know? And that's what it is. So if you, I mean, do you want me
Yeah,
to start
yeah, please
sharing?
go ahead.
Okay. So the one specific aspect, now dhyana is a huge subject, but one specific aspect that I wanted to discuss was it's as a sadhya and sadhan, and a very specific aspect. I will discuss few more aspects, but very specific aspect of emotional regulation. Like, we are definitely, as a definition, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Okay, so to bring the balance to your mind, to your chitta, and the chitta can be translated again in a different ways depending on the context. Sometimes it may mean atma, depending on the context. Sometimes it may mean buddhi, and other times it may mean mind. Okay, but let's take here as a mind, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So to do that balancing, bringing it together, keeping in control, let's say, control is not a good word. In fact, it uses the word nirodha, not virodha, or not control, is the objective. So when that is the objective, that's a sadhya. But once you achieve it, actually you realize it becomes a sadhan to accomplish many other things. And I want to just give few illustrations from Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad Puran, Upanishad, and so on. So let's begin our journey. Dhyana. What is the context of a dhyana? If you, Patanjali Yoga Sutra has 4 parts. And if you go to part number 3 called Vibhuti Pad, like first pad is a Samadhi Pad, Sadhana Pad, Vibhuti Pad, and Kaivalya Pad. So if you go to number 3, it's a Vibhuti Pad. And there we have a wonderful definitions of Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Dharana, again, as we discussed, if we get into a translation, it's always going to be a challenge, and always people of very low intellect are immediately going to start quarrel, saying, oh, that translation is not correct. Well, give me a better translation. And if it makes sense, I will accept it, that kind of discussion. But as a crude translation, of course, of a dharana is specific subject as the object. Like you sort of narrow down the scope and decide, like, what's your object today. It's like a pilot can fly the aeroplane in any direction, but today he's going from Atlanta to San Diego. That is the flight, So sort of decided, okay, that's the direction I want to go. I want to go westward direction. So, the tailwind and headwind and what kind of path you are going to take. So that's like a general idea, but still a specific subject. Dhyana is a reflection to comprehend that subject. So now that it's decided, you start thinking, so usually when I fly westward, these things happen. Am I going to get the headwind versus tailwind? What path I'm going to take? What are the typical things? Am I crossing Rockies? And what's the weather? So you start focusing, narrowing it down further. Focus, reflection to comprehend the subject. Now that what you want to achieve. And then samadhi is a contemplation to bring unbiased clarity about the subject. Okay, so bringing that balance, that balance, okay, of all of this. And a Yoga Sutra tells us, Bhagwan Patanjali tells us that dharana, dhyana, and samadhi together means sayam. Okay, now sayam means like putting it together, just as a metaphorical. If you do that, if you achieve this, then there is a beauty in disturbance. There can be a turbulence here and there, air pockets, and you're not worried because you have done your homework. That there is a smooth ride. There is an interesting ride. If it's too smooth and not even a little bit of this, then you don't have a joy of flying on an aeroplane. So there can be a disturbance, but there is a beauty in disturbance. We know everything is in control, nothing to worry. Or understanding that something, for example, the car wheel, okay, the one that is not moving at all, we also call it steady or a sthira, right? Like a sthita prajna. But the one that is moving at a constant speed, just like aeroplane going at a constant speed, no turbulence, it also feels like a steady. It feels like steady as if it's not going anywhere unless you look out through the window. Okay, so trying to understand something that is not moving at all is a steady, but something that is moving at a constant speed is also steady. Okay, that kind of comprehension comes from a sayama, moving yet steady, for example, and holding it together. And if I have to give a metaphor, I would say, again, because we're using aeroplane today, as a metaphor, like, there are three types of movements, right? There is a pitch axis, the roll axis, and the yaw axis, the three types of movements, one with the rudder, one with the wing arrangement, and then the stick, right? You can compare this with only as a metaphor with a dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And together, what is it doing? Keeping it together. That is a sanyam. Now, this itself is an objective. I mean, knowing how to fly a plane is not easy. So if that's your objective, that's your goal, that's your sadhya, then you have to do a lot of things, sadhana, to get to that stage. But once you achieve that, which is to say, once you achieve how to fly a plane safely, that is a sadhya. Now that sadhya itself becomes a sadhan, because now with that sadhya, with that knowledge, with that expertise, you can go places. So now going to the places becomes the sadhya. And what we consider sadhya before now, which is like expertise in flying a plane, for example, or expertise in dhyana or samadhi or dharana or sanyam, now that becomes a sadhan, okay, a tool to achieve the objective. Now, Patanjali, see again, I told you, Aditya, about the esoteric aspect that some people will continue to talk. I was one time giving a lecture, actually teaching a course in summer workshop at a university in India. It was a 5-day long or so. And when I was using Patanjali Yoga Sutra, some of these so-called experts, I mean, they are experts in their field. Okay, I'm using the word so-called is because of this confusion that I'm going to refer to. I quoted something from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I will do that again today. And they said, hey, this is all fine, but don't use it. Please do your science, what you want to do. Oh, you study in the Indian antiquity or world antiquity of civilizations. Yeah, do just fine. But please don't bring Patanjali Yoga Sutra into it. Just leave the Yoga Sutra untouched. The reason I'm bringing this point, Aditya ji, is because people possibly know the Patanjali Yoga Sutra by heart, but they don't understand what Patanjali is saying. So there is a huge difference between knowing and understanding. And of course, there is another huge difference could be between understanding, but not following or not practicing. Okay, that's why the acharya is not same as a shikshak. The shikshak can be simply a trainer, simply an instructor, whereas acharya is someone who is showing it through one's behavior. Okay, the person doesn't have to teach something extra. What Bhagwan Patanjali is saying just after this, by the way. So the first three sutra of Vibhutipad are about what is dharana, what is dhyana, what is samadhi, and therefore bringing it together, what is sanyam. That's number 4. And this is number 6 of Vibhutipad. Then he says, now that you have this expertise, now that you understood how to do dhyana, dharana, samadhi, and sanyam, bringing those together, now that you have that expertise, just like how you know how to fly a plane, now go places. It says, tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. Now you have to make use of that knowledge right here and now. Tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. That is the point that is lost. Now, many people will simply think that the dhyana or understanding how to do meditation is its own reward. Now, that is true. So until you achieve it, it is your sadhan. But once you achieve it, until you achieve it, it's your sadhya, it's your objective. Once you achieve it, now there is more to it. You just don't stop there and keep on talking dhyana, dhyana, dhyana for rest of your life. Apply it. Tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. And this Vibhuti Yoga, I don't remember exact number of sutra, but there are definitely like more than 50 sutra in this. So after this sutra number 6, I'm sure there are at least 50 more. Then it starts telling what are some of the things that you can achieve. How can you make a viniyoga? How can you apply this? In what different ways you can apply this? And out of those 50 plus, what I am showing you here are like about exactly 9 here, but there could be few more that I could have posted. The reason these are sutra, that's how the sutra would look. Of course, it's in a Nagari script. So just for fun, I'll read some of these. I am putting these or only these because this is my experience. Remember, we talked about the proof is in the taste of the pudding. There are many others, and I don't have a first-hand experience of those, so I have not placed them. That is not to say, therefore, those are not valid. They are definitely, other people would have experience of it. I have not possibly done enough sadhana, or in the context, you all of us have limitation. Okay, and I'll talk about that too. But what I have shown you here, 9 sutra, Adityaji, I have a first-hand experience of it. Actually, they are very, very simple. Simple in the sense, they appear simple, sometimes they are not. For example, let's take this. Kramanyatvam parinamanyatve hetuhu. What does that mean? Again, if I translate that, it is a common sense. Exactly right. And that's why when you ask me, when people take dhyana and translate it as a meditation, focusing, is that a right translation? I would say, yeah, prima facie, absolutely right translation. As long as they don't quickly run to a very novice conclusion. Oh, that's it? Yeah, I mean, I knew that. What's the big deal about it? No, this is like a formula. For example, Einstein's formula equal to F equal to ma, force equal to mass times acceleration. Okay, or equal to mc square, like the energy generated is equal to m, the mass of that substance, and if it travels supposedly at a speed of light square, okay, that much energy will be generated in principle. And once you see it, you say, okay, what's the big deal? Well, there's a big deal. I mean, these both guys, I mean, there was no Nobel Prize in Newton's time, but Newton is like, for the modern science, you would say, is like considered like a god, F equal to ma. Or Einstein, the latest god, you can say, E equal to mc square, and many more. So that's just like you write that formula, that's how it is. There is so much into it. What appears to the prima facie vision is not the whole truth. And so in that sense, the translations can be misleading, but that is a challenge anywhere, even if you do the translation or write a commentary in Sanskrit itself. So kramanyatvam parinamanyatve hetu. What it's saying is the sequence matters. Okay, now that's a common sense. Suppose if you are cooking, okay, you are making, say, French fries or samosas. Well, what does both of these things involve? They involve washing the ingredients, washing the vegetables like potatoes. There are potatoes in both cases. Okay, then there's something is involved in assembling things together, right? Something is involved in first of cleaning, then frying, okay, heating, frying, taking it out, spicing. But the sequence matters. If you change the sequence, you might end up with a disastrous product. Although you may follow exactly same recipe, but just change the sequence. That's all it is saying. In a Vijnana Buddhi, in scientific acumen, this one is referred to as a Anukram. There are 11 principles in a Vijnana Buddhi, and Anukram is one of them. The sequence matters. The sequence in which you test your evidence matters, and so on. Okay, I'll just move on. And so what it's saying is that parinama, that is saying parinama traya sanyamad atitana gata jnanam. So if you use it in a proper fashion, you can know about the past and you can know about the future. Okay, so the modern science, especially physics, like we can talk about physics envy some other time, but physics is something, relatively speaking, a more perfect science. Okay, if you are going to hit with a stone, you can tell how far that stone will go if you know the force and what things it might hit, and if it shatters the glass, and if you know the properties of that glass, how far it will shatter. Sort of like a very predictable one. Okay, similarly, so if you understand the sequence, if you understand that relationship, that's the formulas I talked about. It says that Sanyama, again, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi, you bring that knowledge together. It will tell you about the past. It will tell you about the future. Now, this is, Adityaji knows, and a number of you who listen to me know that that's what I have done, for example, for the past. Of course, the objective of that is to use that past knowledge to make our life better in the present and future. That's why we study Itihasa, by the way. But how do I know about the past? By understanding the sequence. Okay, the next one, which is what we discussed, the time and place. Shana tat kramayo sanyamad vivekajam jnanam. Then why that sequence, the krama, anukram is important, but also the timing of it. Like how long frying is important, but how long you fry matters. The spices are important, but how many spices you put matters. They should not be too little, they should not be too much. Okay, that's that kshana tat kramayo sanyamat. If you balance that, then you are going to get sensible outcome. Vivekajam jnanam, sensible knowledge, sensible outcome. How beautiful. Maitriyadishu balani. Okay, have right friends. The what can be useful, they can help you what you are doing, they can help you propagate your message, like what Aditya ji and me together are doing for what now close to 2 years, I would like to think. Okay, now what you focus on also matters. Baleshu hasti baladini. If you focus on an elephant, okay, and put that, like Aditya ji, you talked about the object for meditation. Elephant can be object for meditation. Okay, or elephant can be your object as you do your exercise. You are going to attain the strength like elephant. Okay, baleshu hasti baladini. Now this is generic thing. I'm not talking the physical strength alone. Suppose you focus on a trivial problem. You will solve trivial problem, but nobody will care. If you focus on a very critical problem, very complicated problem, very useful problem, then you may or may not succeed. But if you succeed, actually you will make a revolution. Okay, and then pravritya lokanyasat sukshma vyavahita viprakrishta jnanam. Pravritya, if you get rid of your pravritti, what are those? Raga, dvesha, moha, okay? Attachment to something, detestation for something, and stupidity. I mean, if you get out of this and develop your true knowledge, you can know about the microscopic things. You can know about the things that are hidden to our charma chakshu, hidden to our, what can you say, material senses, like, the five senses, viewing and hearing and so on. And viprakrishta jnanam, that is distant. You can know something that is microscopic, you can know something that is hidden otherwise, and you can know something that is distant. Okay, so distant, when you say distant, that distant is also in space, but also in time. Similarly, something hidden, which means it's not deliberately hidden. You can actually see it. It's given in right front of you. I mean, how many of you, that's the thing, Aditya ji, I was telling you when I was teaching that workshop. I did not know, and still I don't know, all these Sutra of Patanjali by heart. Number of professors there knew all these Sutra by heart. And that's a great thing, by the way. Okay, that's a preservation of tradition. But they didn't know how to take it from a Shraddha to Prajna, how to make use of them. But Patanjali is saying, you have to make use of it. The last one there is what I have focused my last 30 plus years. It just so happened that way. It was not like planned or anything. Bhuvana Jnanam Surya Sanyama. Sanyama, again, remember, it's a Dhyana, Dharana and Samadhi together is a Sanyam. The Patanjali is using Sanyama in a very specific way than possibly we would have used, like we just use it sometime in a sense of control. Okay, but here Sanyama is bringing it together, holding it together. In that sense, there is a control, but control may not be the right translation. Putting it together, triangulating it together, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi together. Bhuvana Jnanam Surya Sanyama. If you do that Sanyam, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi on the sun, you get the knowledge of this world. I'll give you one example how that knowledge is used to again know about the past and the future. We have done 4 episodes here, which on Sattology channel. If you read Mahabharata, and Mahabharata tells you that the Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for more than 92 days, waiting for the day of winter solstice. Now, winter solstice is what? Sun at the extreme south, as seen in the northern hemisphere. That knowing, understanding these different Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi aspects of the sun with respect to winter solstice and the chronological understanding of more than 92 days. Bhuvana Jnanam, what do we immediately know? The Bhuvana Jnanam is also in terms of Kshana Tat Kramayo. It's also in a sense of a place and also time. Immediately we know that, see, just simple things. Bhishma was waiting on the bed of arrows to the day of winter solstice for more than 92 days. Immediately, just that one sentence tells me that when Bhishma fell in the battle, it must be the first month of Sharat season. Seasons are decided by the sun. Okay. And immediately, if I put some additional information, I'll tell you the next information. It tells me go to 6th millennium BCE, more than 7,500 years ago. Next one says Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Actually, they are these sutras are in a sequence. So how do we understand that Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam? It is saying Chandre Sanyamat Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Okay, or Tara Vyuha Jnanam Chandre Sanyamat. That's what it is saying. So you will get the knowledge of the astral bodies, the celestial knowledge you will get. Like Surya will tell you the terrestrial knowledge, the seasons. The focusing on the moon will tell you the celestial knowledge. Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam, or Tara Vyuha Jnanam Sanyamat Chandre, or that's Tara Vyuha Jnanam Chandre Sanyamat. Again, the beauty of Sanskrit is even if you change the sequence in which those words go, the meaning does not change. What a beauty. Okay. So if you say Sanyamat Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam, meaning is same. Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam Sanyamat, meaning is same. And you say Tara Vyuha Jnanam Chandre Sanyamat, the meaning is same. Okay. For the one example of that, again, we have done possibly a few episodes. If you look at phases and positions of the moon through the 18 days of the war, what does that tell you? Bingo. Right away, it tells you, the first day of the Mahabharat war cannot be any other day but Kartika Bahula Amavasya. And which means the majority, I mean, the rest of the time of those 18 days will be the first part of Margashirsha lunar month, which means what? On that full moon day, like from the first day, like approximately 15 days, the full moon would be near Nakshatra Mrugashirsha, in the vicinity of Mrugashirsha. The moon, full moon, would be near Mrugashirsha. Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Mrugashirsha is a star, Tara, and Chandra's position. And what does it tell us? It tells us that the war must begin on the Kartika Amavasya. It should continue through first part of the Margashirsha month. Why? Because full moon like moon from Kritika all the way to Punarvasu, day 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18th day is a Pusha, and that's the beginning of Kali Yuga. Like how much we know? We know about the time, we know about the space, and so on. And Dhruve Tad Gati Jnanam. Again, remember that is Sanyamat word is there. So Gati Jnanam Dhruve Sanyamat, and you can do that. That is what Arundhati Vasishta is, Aditya-ji. And again, we have done few, but we will do many more on Arundhati Vasishta. We can just do 52 episodes for 1 year on Arundhati Vasishta. It is that fascinating because it is one of the crucial observations. Okay. Therefore, if you are successful, it leads to revolution on every single front you can imagine. So the focusing on the Dhruva is very important. Again, I'm saying this, Aditya-ji, for a different reason, many reasons. Many of Mahabharata researchers don't know how to focus on a Dhruva. So therefore, they don't understand why Arundhati is going ahead of Vasishta and why it is behind and why that time is only leads to 6th millennium BC. Dhruve Tad Gati Jnanam. How practical is this? But many times people will take something like Patanjali Yoga Sutra and turn it into very esoteric. So let me now I gave you already a few examples. Let me tell you some simple practical ways of using it. Separating grains from the chaff, the framework for analyzing any existing claims. We use this framework multiple times. Okay. Right at the center is bringing it together. So think of an aeroplane again. Like if we need a course correction, like, the wings, that is called a roll, right? Those are adjusted, and then there is that yaw, which is just deciding another motion, another control of the aeroplane. And then there is a pitch, right? The rudder and all that useful. Yeah, you make these all different changes, but you make those changes to keep the plane in control, right? Going smoothly towards the destination. That is that central, bringing it together, the Sanyama. But to achieve that, you do make different types of corrections. Similarly, if you want to know truly when the Mahabharata war happened, Ramayana happened, when exactly was the time of Sushruta, or when, how old is Surya Siddhanta, how old is Aryabhatiya, doesn't matter. I mean, you can take any subject that you want. I'm just telling you something that I'm familiar with, something that I have worked on for 30 plus years. Actual somebody's claim may fall into these 4 buckets and actually no other. There are only these 4 buckets, guys. If somebody has a claim about something, it's going to fall into these 4. Okay. Now, how to use the knowledge from the Dhyana into this? Okay, so quickly I'll go through this. So the desired situation is the top right-hand corner. That is not to say there is no good at all into other quadrants. Look at the check box. So when you see the check mark, that means there is something good in it. And if you see both X's, that means it's really, really bad. Okay. And we'll see how to deal with it. So it can be used now that this knowledge of a Sanyam, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi can be used in a very objective, neutral fashion to understand, look at any claim and without getting emotional, to understand the worth of that claim, to understand the good of that claim, but to also understand the disastrous aspect of that specific claim. Chatushkoti logic. Okay, again, it's very popular in Indian tradition. Now, the Indian tradition called Jainism are very much in love with this. Okay, it's a framework for analyzing various points of views. Okay, I'm going to go a bit fast through this, but the exactly same framework, now instead of the other names, I'm now calling this by Chatushkoti logic, 4 types of logic. Usually the binary logic is what, Adityaji? The true and false, right? Either it is true or false. The Chatushkoti logic says not so, not necessarily. There can be more nuances to it. Something can be neither true nor false. Something can be both true and false. And we will actually look at some examples if we have time. And something is true or the best approximation to the truth based on our knowledge, the limitations of our knowledge, and something is definitely false. That's called falsification, therefore. Okay. The falsification usually is a decisive. That is not to say that it will not be brought back with an advancement in knowledge, but usually it's a decisive, at least in that fashion. But the truth, it's somewhat temporal in the sense of it can be our best approximation to the truth. Like the greatest developments and that modern civilization feels so proud and justifiably so is the development in cosmology, right? Right from Ptolemy to Copernicus to Tycho Brahe to Kepler to Newton to Maxwell and Galileo and Einstein and so on. Okay. But what we realize, the very fact I took these many different names and very fact the theory is changing, which means we are at any given time, it's a good best approximation to the truth of that time. But then somebody else comes and takes it even further. So even it can be used for that. Let's look at, this is Robin Skinner, who wrote book with John Cleese, if you know, the creator of Faulty Towers. This is a very marmic, a very thoughtful, analytical quote. He says, he was a psychologist. He says, if you cannot control your own emotions, then you have to start controlling other people's behavior. If you cannot control your own emotions, how depending on how they behave, and Aditya and myself have a good experience of it, and I'm sure those who are listening have a good experience of it every day, then you have to start controlling other people's behavior. So if you cannot control that, then you better work on your own emotions. And again, we will see the insights from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Now, someone like Chanakya, who is into the art of statecraft, he will say, guess what? But if you are in politics, so to say, and we have a few individuals joining, in a way, we have no choice but to an extent we need some tools to modify people's behavior. How they understand things, do they understand the issues, how they vote, and so on. So framework for dealing with individuals to achieve one desired objective. Okay, so yeah, if you are in a statecraft, like Chanakya is saying, hey, you have to do this. And how does Chanakya does that? Now, Chanakya is saying it, but you will find these descriptions in various Puranas. You will find this in the Agni Puran. I think it is there in the Markandeya Puran. I don't know the exact names, but definitely it's there in Agni Puran. Something I'm going to show you, again, the same framework, but number of you would have heard this, and Adityaji, you definitely know Sama, Dama, Dandaved, or Sama, Dana, Dandaved. Sama is, negotiation, okay, give and take. If you do this, I will do this, right? Dana, okay, Dana is like a bribe, you can say, give a money. But Dama, okay, also means like praise. Okay, or give that person the right recognition, and you can get things out of that person. Danda, somebody just, finally doesn't get it, then some kind of punishment, the person should feel the pain, and therefore his or her behavior is changed. And then Bheda. Sometimes somebody thinks everyone is same. No, he says, no, yours is not correct. Your work is of an extremely inferior kind. Okay, it's childish, and here are the reasons. So you differentiate, you find a way to differentiate, you find a way to explain that to that individual, but the individual may or may not understand, then to others, why that work is of an inferior quality. Okay, this is what Chanakya has talked about. This is what many Puranas talk, Agni Puran being one, but there are few other Puranas who also refer to it. Now, let's get back to Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I told you this is the framework for emotional regulations. So now if you are not going to control or modify other people's behavior, but people are people, right? They are going to behave in the way that they find convenient, that what they are used to. Okay. So what do we do? Otherwise, we'll be very frustrated. And so Patanjali is giving a formula, and you'll see how consistent that formula is across the ancient wisdom, not limited to India, but we are just looking at the ancient Indian narratives. So from those, so again, the same framework, but now I'm going to quote another sutra from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It's from Samadhipad 33. Maitri karuna mudito pekshanam sukha dukkha punya apunya vishayanam bhavanat chitta prasadanam. Okay, so let's take those first parts, sukha dukkha, punya apunya. Again, we get back to translation, and I'm going to give you a deliberately very simple translation. Okay, and there is nothing wrong with it. I think we should always translate in a simple fashion so that people understand. What is the point of giving a complex translation that nobody understands and still people are confused? Sukha dukkha punya apunya. My translation of it: sukha, good; dukkha, bad. Okay, I'm just making it very simple. Punya, desired; apunya, undesired. Good, bad, desired, undesired. Okay, the simple way. Now, if that's the kind of behavior you see among others, or that's the kind of you come across as a claim. So you come across a claim, you use your analytical power to divide this using the Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi, Sanyam in a very balanced fashion. You do this. Now, what do? You may get frustrated. You may get angry. Okay, you may sometimes feel glad, very pleased with what you are hearing, what you're reading, maybe because it matches with your claim, whatever the reason. And sometimes, like, you are so glad. For example, take a critical edition of Mahabharata. I feel so glad. My God, these are like hundreds of different manuscripts of a Mahabharata text brought in together, meticulously cataloged with all the variation. What a pleasure. Okay, what a pleasure. That's a very desired aspect that was done by the critical edition researchers. And apunya, there is no dearth of this, the undesired behavior by other people. Now, how to respond to this? Patanjali is saying, Bhagwan Patanjali is saying, Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam. Okay, someone who is doing good things, you make friendship with that person. You can learn, you can collaborate, and you can do more. Somebody who is doing bad things, have compassion. The person is doing it for reasons that she may not understand. Some past life events, whatever the reason, have compassion. The person who is doing undesired things and would not stop, would not cease to do it, just become indifferent, ignore the person, indifferent, upeksha. And just like that critical edition I said, it's naturally, you don't control your feeling. Naturally, you are pleased. You actually might approach those people and say, hey, now you have done this critical edition for Mahabharata. Can you also do this for Ramayana? Can you also do this for Surya Siddhanta? Can you also do this for Harimamsha? Can you also do this for Bhagavad Purana? And so on and so forth. Okay, it's a pleasing thing, encourage it if possible and go do that. Patanjali is saying this is what is required if you want to attain dhyana. Otherwise, your mind will always be disturbed. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha that you want to do, people around you are always going to disturb you. You have to find a way to find that center. Okay, pulling it together in the middle, that's sanyama. How do you do it? Through dhyana, dharana, samadhi, but with the additional help of this bhavana, how to manage your emotion, how to regulate your emotion. Maitri karuna mudito pekshanam sukha dukkha punya apunya vishayanam bhavanat chitta prasadanam. The goal is to keep your mind in a pleasant state. Just like for a pilot flying the plane, Yes, there might be turbulence, there might be headwind, there might be tailwind, there may be some other aspects. What is the pilot's objective? Use all the different controls at one's hand to keep the plane secured, smooth, and going in the direction of the destination. What are the controls here? The control here are Maitri Karuna Mudito Upekshanam. Maitri Karuna Mudita rather, and Upeksha. Indifference, friendship, being pleased with that activity, expressing your joy, expressing your admiration, okay, expressing your agreement, or showing compassion. Those are the ways to deal with this. Then they will not affect you, because these people will be, this behavior will be there. In many ways, with our own behavior, we may be causing distress to others. I mean, be in awareness of that. It's not that the only other people are the bad ones causing distress to you. We ourselves, I may be causing distress to others with my habits, and I should be aware of it, but it's their job now to use this Maitri Karuna Mudito Upekshanam. I can take responsibility both ways, right? Okay. Quickly, Bhagavad Puran. Now, this is a framework for retaining progress. Bhagavad Puran is focused on a bhakti. Okay. So now bhakti also has layers. Everything has a gradation, guys. So just like when we say somebody is buddhiman, somebody has a lot of buddhi. But we have to also ask really the gradation. Is it a lot of buddhi of a sattvic kind, rajasic kind, or tamasic kind? Okay. See, Warren Buffett has a good quote, right? He says, if I'm hiring someone, he looks at three qualities. Okay. So it's like a intellect, energy, and integrity. And then he says, that's true. But if the person doesn't have the last, if doesn't have integrity, then he better not have a lot of intellect and energy. Rather you want that person to be really dumb and really lazy, because if he or she doesn't have integrity but have a lot of intellect and energy, they are going to create disaster. They are going to make the business bankrupt. Because they don't have integrity. It's the same thing. Right. So again, this balance of Maitri, Karuna, Mudito, Pekshana. And if you are, so Buddhiman by itself is not sufficient. Somebody is like totally dedicated to bhakti, just upasana. That by itself is not good. No, that is a good thing. Focus is good. Dharana is good. Dhyana is good. Sayam is good. Samadhi is good. But it needs this balancing. And so even bhakta, we talk about Kanishta bhakta, Madhyam bhakta, Uttam bhakta. Okay. Now, it's not like immediately say, oh, therefore I want to be Uttam Bhakta. You don't say you want to be, you become. Okay. And then people may know it and you will still think you are not Uttam Bhakta. Like if you ask Aditya will say he's a Madhyam Bhakta. If you ask me, I will also agree immediately that I'm a Madhyam Bhakta. Okay. I'll show you on the next page what the Madhyam Bhakta does. Ishwaretad Adhineshu, this is from Bhagavad Puran, 11th chapter. 11th skanda. This is from Uddhav Gita. Ishwaretad adineshu balisheshu dvishatsucha prema maitri krupopeksha yah karoti sa madhyama. This is a characteristic of a madhyam bhakta. Why I would say I'm a madhyam bhakta, why Aditya ji would say he's a madhyam bhakta, is because, we don't look at everyone the same. That is maybe the ultimate objective. But if you do look at this, then it's like Advaita kind of situation. There is no question of preaching. We would not hold this discussion. Why hold this discussion? The people, the audience, they are exactly same state of knowledge as I would be or Aditya ji would be. They know whatever I'm going to blabber here, they already know. What is the point of me doing this? Okay. Ishwar, so the Madhyam Bhakta is one who preaches. That is the definition, right? Now, how do we respond to this? How is this Madhyam Bhakta manages his position, decides to stay on the course and not get disturbed by using the same formula? Exactly same formula that some fashion we talked in case of Chanakya, but not exactly, because he was trying to manipulate other people's behavior, let's say, in a statecraft that's required. But then the way Bhagwan Patanjali is saying, that is exactly what Krishna is telling Uddhava. Okay, prema maitri krupopeksha ya karoti samadhyama. So mudita, like a joy, expression of joy, is changed with a prem, which is very similar, and karuna is replaced with a krupa, which again means very similar. But otherwise, maitri and upeksha, okay, the friendship, collaboration, and indifference, they remain the same. Now, actually, in that sense, it is done. But now people would typically ask, okay, so there are, say, like these four types of claims, four types of behaviors, four types of attitudes, how people do things. Is there a way to transform these many of these undesired or not so desired categories and move them towards the desired category, like the top right hand corner? The answer is, in theory, the answer is yes. Okay, so framework for skill development, framework for transformation. The answer is yes. And this is the slide, Aditya ji, you have seen this before, maybe with not that central circle of Sanyam in between there. But the formula is simple. Shraddha, Pradnya, Virya equal to Satya. Okay, Shraddha plus Pradnya plus Virya equal to Satya. What is that formula? Formula is again given by Patanjali in Yoga Sutra in Samadhi Path. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, Purvaka. If you're already there, if you're already into top right hand corner, then just stay there, do more of the same. All is well. Okay, just like everything is there, continue to cruise, smooth cruising. Okay, just enjoy the ride kind of thing. Do more of that. But if it's not there, how do you do it? Well, answer is simple. Okay, Shraddha, I mean, you have these quadrants, understand what is the focus of each of these, and you have to give up some. In fact, if you go below that horizontal line of testability, what you find into those brackets below is what? All the negativity. Okay, Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati. This is from Nyaya Darshana. What we are looking at is the Yoga Darshana, Patanjali's. Nyaya Darshana is of Rishi Gautam. Okay, see how these all come together. All these different darshanas, they are not in contrast with each other. They are complementary to each other. But many times they are perceived by people as if they are fighting against each other. They are not fighting. They are bringing a certain point of view, like that 6 blind people and an elephant story. Okay, they are bringing different pieces together in a jigsaw puzzle fashion to make a complete picture of an elephant. So Nyaya Darshan is talking about the 5 bad things. Okay, Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati, and these all lead to the points of defeat. Why you want your life of a defeat? Change. So, but the change, the desire to change has to come from those individuals, or has to come from those schools of thought, okay, who are stuck below that horizontal line. But if they want it, there is a way. What is the way? Shraddha, Pradnya, Virya, Satya. What is that evolutionary path? Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, Purvaka. Many times Aditya ji and myself, online talks here also, but offline we talk many times, and Aditya ji says that, and that's an insight for me. He says, well, I say, why is this person behaving like that? And Aditya ji will say, because the person may pretend to be anything, but he or she, whatever, does not have a Shraddha. This is a good example of it. The whole journey begins with Shraddha. Shraddhavan labate jnanam. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, it begins with Shraddha. If you don't have a Shraddha, forget it. There is no chance of you gaining any true knowledge. And with that, I will stop. So Dhyana is a sadhan, okay, a tool required to accomplish things. But once you become expert at it, it also, so initially that time it is a sadhya, right? I mean, when you are in a sadhana stage, you don't know, then it's a sadhya. But once you achieve it, then it becomes a sadhana. Okay, I should actually change the sequence. Dhyana is initially a sadhya if you don't know how to do it. But once it is, then it becomes a sadhan to achieve more things. Dhyana is required for individual accomplishment. It's also required to interact with others, people around us. So individual as a producer, as a consumer of knowledge, and to separate grains from the chaff. These are some of the applications I showed of a Dhyana as a tool, as a sadhan. A few illustrations we looked at from Chatushkoti logic, from Chanakya Niti, from Yoga Sutra, from Bhagavad Purana. And the transformation is possible. Transformation from undesired to desired. Okay, and you should want it. And people will say, "Oh, why should I change?" I mean, that's also another big problem. People may be in an undesired state, but they don't want to change. I will not tell the story, and maybe I will get Aditya ji to tell the story after I stop sharing. Is that story of I forgot, once Indra or whoever, it becomes, is been punished to become a pig, and he becomes very happy there, the whole pig family. And when Brahma or whoever comes and says, hey, it's a time for you to go back, he says, no, no, I'm so very happy there. So just the line that I showed below, horizontal line, people say, what's wrong with it? I'm very happy. I'm cranking stuff using this very inferior method. They don't think it's an inferior method, but they are very happy. They're cranking publications, cranking different things and whatnot. So if they don't understand that they need to change, then not much you can do. But if they want to change, the path is there. The path is possible. Okay. And why do you want to do that? Why do you want to change? That's what, say, if you go to Mundak Upanishad, Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma, which means the person knows now the desire why he or she wants to change, because they want to know the Sat, the truth, and the Brahma, the ultimate reality. And how do you do that? Through Satya, through knowing the truth or best approximation to the truth. That's what Mundak Upanishad is saying. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma. Okay, so to get to that Atma, which is Brahma or Parabrahma, is through Satya, but to get to Satya, you need a tapasya. Okay, there is a hard work involved here. If you are in an undesired state, if your health is not in a good shape, you have to do a lot of things on nutrition, exercise, your behavior, sleeping pattern to get to this. Lot of tapasya. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. And then samyak jnan, which is that sanyam. Okay, balancing everything together in a very neutral fashion. Okay, neutral but very conscious, very cognitive fashion, in a prajna fashion. Neutral doesn't mean you are indifferent. Neutral is in the sense of balanced. Okay, you are not disturbed by the bhavanas and emotions. Okay, tat trairasham raga dvesha moha arthantar bhava. Those raga dvesha moha are not disturbing you. You have conquered them. You know how to control them. That is that dhyana again. Okay, and that's it. So with that, Aditya, let me stop sharing.
No, what a wonderful presentation, and few things you mentioned, sadhana, and you also mentioned uttam, madhyam, and kanish adhikari, which is you mentioned, adhikar se adhikari aaya, adhikar. So the you correctly mentioned that we are all madhyam, because we are uttam adhikari is param drishva nivartate, and which he sees everything equally, samatvam. But in the real world, we are all madhyam, especially the sadhaka. So the important difference comes between bhakta and sadhaka, because bhakta is it's a title given by others, not by yourself to you.
Right.
You cannot say I am a great bhakta. You can say I am a great sadhaka. Somebody else may recognize you that you are a bhakta. So, but there is a big problem that people call themselves, I am your biggest fan, I am your biggest bhakta. Same time they use like a self-glorification. So what do you have to tell to those people? When the Shastra says they are sadhaka and they have a sadhan and they have a sadhya.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Well, yeah, no, great question. And we have discussed this in other fashion, like other three axis framework I use, yes, which is Shraddha, Jidnyasa, and a Samshay, right? Beautiful. So for example, Jidnyasa, Kutuhal, like they ask the question, like a idle curiosity. Like, I want to do research like you, suggest me some subject. Okay. Or like I get these emails all the time. I forgot what the yesterday's email was. Okay. So now that I have done the dating for Ramayana Mahabharata, the person said, okay, so we know the birth tithi of a Vamana, Bhagwan Vamana. So based on that, please tell me the year. Now I have to go back to the person and said, all I can tell you is that Vamana was before Rama, and therefore more than 14,000 years ago, long before 14,000 years ago. More than that cannot be said because the information is not there. The pramanas are not there, right? So Kutuhala is an idle curiosity. That's what many people live in that area. And they may feel so great about themselves that they even have a question. My suggestion to them, or the question that you ask, is that they have to, it's maybe a good start. But, that's a good start for a 6-year-old. Like, baby, you did great, but to a grown-up, it doesn't look good, if the person just stays there. And so the person has to take that idle curiosity and take it to jidnyasa.
Yes.
I mean, take it to Saprayojana rather. I mean, both is jidnyasa, both is curiosity. Saprayojan, meaning do something about it. Don't ask others to do it. That is extremely tamasic. So that is my advice to them.
Yeah. So, being a sadhaka is always a safe position because you cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
You're not claiming to be a perfect guy, and then you're also claiming to be a very. We are all sadhaka is like what you're doing is sadhana because
Yeah.
you're engaged in research, and so this is a very safe position.
Yes.
You're not assuming, but and amongst the Western yoga teachers also, I'm talking about the Western yoga teachers also, they call themselves yogi.
Hmm.
Now again,
Yeah.
yogi is a title given by somebody else,
Yeah.
but the person who is doing yoga will, like K.S. Iyengar, he said in one interview, he said, I am a sadhaka of Patanjali Sutra. So very safe position.
Yes.
And like a teacher will never say that I am, he may say that, yes, my profession is teaching, but generally good teachers, they always say, and good gurus say that I'm learning.
Yeah. They will not say Acharya.
Acharya,
Others will call him Acharya,
Acharya.
but they will not say that they are Acharya.
It's just like Bharat Ratna given by Jawaharlal Nehru to himself.
Yeah.
So that
Well, and Indira Gandhi to herself and
also
Rajiv Gandhi to himself.
himself. So all
Yeah.
these people, they,
You see the genetic consistency. So it's the behavioral consistency can pass through the genes also.
yeah, the Pappu family heritage.
If Pappu would have come, or then he would have given Bharat Ratna to himself too,
No, they will definitely give. They're waiting for that.
and to his mommy.
Uh,
So,
Italy Bharat Ratna.
mhm.
So, but the last point I'll make is for American yogis is that the word yogi is a very deep word. Shivji himself says bhaja word he uses for himself. He tells to Parvati that I am
Mhm.
always engaged in bhajan of Narayan.
Correct.
In the case of Ritrasur and Chitraketu.
Yeah.
And Chitraketu, when Parvati Devi gives him shrap. Now, and the shrap, again, we will talk about it much later. Shrap doesn't mean curse. Shrap
Correct.
is given for actually the benefit, not to
Yeah.
put anybody down.
Yeah.
So, great presentation and great points, Dhyan. And one thing I'll say that even though you correctly said it, that the meditation is a very common, good for Dhyan, but also the Dhyan yoga. When you say the moment you add yoga, then there is Paramatma involved.
Yeah.
Otherwise, whom are you doing Dhyan for?
Correct.
So simple Dhyan can lead to craziness, but
Yeah.
Dhyana yoga can lead to perfection, Siddha.
Yes. Very true. Well put.
We'll stop it here. Thank you so much, Nilesh. It's always a pleasure, Nilesh to speak with you. And for viewers who are watching it, do comment. Let us know your feedback. We are more important in comments. Okay. No. Namaste.
Namaskar.